Hey, what's up,
Happening.
guys? We got the whole team together tonight. It's good to see both of you guys.
That I know. We even have Greg Burns.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing good. Been a busy man, huh?
Well, it's that time of year, and whenever the painful part is we talk about this all the time, and Susie says, however long you think it takes, times that by 3. Well, here we are trying to get everything ready for the West Virginia conference, and I've got a couple of presentations and a roundtable that we're a part of, and we're trying to figure out what to load, what to fit in the trailer, what can we do, and it's just it feels like it's last minute, but we've been prepping for this for a while. But it's where the rubber meets the road, and we're not complaining. But it's a lot. So I've got about another 3 hours worth of work, maybe 4, at the farm tonight. So I'll be able to stay on about an hour tonight, and then I'll have to probably jump off. But it's good seeing you guys, and I'm sorry that it's been a few sessions since we've been back here, but it's good seeing you in here.
That's okay, and we'll just see how things roll, and if we're going to cover some fun topics tonight, pretty basic stuff, but I think maybe we can get it done in an hour. If not, we'll let you bow out and we'll continue on. We'll just figure that out as we go. But I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight to the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. As you know, we've been doing these for over a year now. It's been a lot of fun, and we welcome anyone new who might be on here. All kinds of names in here that we recognize, and some probably we don't. It's just so good to have everyone on here, and we hope to continue to provide some good content that you enjoy, and maybe some information that will help you in your own endeavors. So, Brian, what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Snow. That's about it. It's crazy.
What is that? What is snow?
It's this white stuff that falls out of the sky, and it just it covers everything, and it's cold at the same time. So, but I'm actually not that upset with having the snow and the little cold spell that we had, just because it put the brakes on the start of the season a little bit, because everything was just so fast, and it was kind of concerning me. I know it was concerning a lot of people up in this area. It's like, or when swarm's going to start, when are we going to have to split? When are we just going to have to do anything? Yeah. And Mother Nature kind of just said, okay, hold up there a little bit. So yeah, look at that. Over a foot of snow fell here yesterday, David Lewis said. Yeah.
It's crazy, down here it's been pretty warm. We're way ahead of schedule, I think, or so a lot of people say, but we do have a little cool snap, I'll say. We're going to be in the 30s at night, which for us is, but when I think about it, it seems like March of every year we have that little cold snap, what we call
Yeah.
a cold snap in March. And I'm not sure why the cold doesn't all happen in the wintertime and then it just switches automatically, but it seems like that happens every year.
Yep.
Some years, of course, it's worse than others, but some of the coldest times I remember were actually in March. And so it's
Mhm.
not uncommon to have that happen. And like you, I don't think it's going to slow our bees down much down here, but I'm okay with it if it does just a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're going to be 30s. People down here think it's the worst thing ever, the ice age, when it hits the 30s at nighttime in March, but it's going to be,
So
30s and
funny.
60s and 70s in the daytime for the next few days. And we've had a little rain coming in and out of here today. It's been beautiful weather, but it's been a little bit more chilly than usual the last couple of days, but it's okay. And we're fine with that.
Yeah.
So Greg, you already mentioned a little bit about what's going on in your neck of the woods. Anything you'd like to add to that as far as just your full guns blazing, it sounds like already?
It's just one of those things where it's hard to put it in words. You hate you when you say certain things, it's not that you are looking to be right, but when you're looking to nature and nature gives you signs, and then you wait a few weeks and then she proves herself out, there's a certain peace and comfort knowing that you were in tune and looking for the signs, and then you made plans and plan accordingly, and then it all falls into place. People laugh at me all the time. They think I'm ridiculous. They think I'm a backwoods hillbilly because I do things like look to the woolly caterpillar, look to the signs of nature, look to see what the trees and the plants are doing. And everything has been laid out. A blueprint has been laid out for the entire winter and the entire spring. And because of that, we've really doubled down financially to invest in some equipment and feed pollen patties. And I think it was one of the smartest things that we ever did was keeping these colonies topped off with fondant the entire winter because they are looking beautiful. And a lot of the colonies they've been looking for protein for a month. They've been out hot and heavy looking for protein wherever they can find it. And when you're in tune with nature and when you're in tune with your bees and you can pick up on those little nuances, and then you have enough confidence with the experience that you do have to make those calls, it can really pay off. Timing is everything. And I think one of the smartest moves that we ever did this year. There's three things looking back right now, and Bruce, this will tie into tonight's conversation as we kind of dig into the differences in uh, backyard, sideline, commercial, how we approach our bees and how we plan and how we invest, how much time it takes, what our goals are all different in all three. But because we're in this weird sideline to commercial scale of what we do. Some things are definitely commercial, some things are more sideline. And there's actually some things out there that are straight up backyard. And maybe we'll dig into a little bit about that. But investing in and miticides, keeping our bees clean and free of viruses. They are just as prolific and as healthy as they've ever been. Keeping them topped off with fondant, they are not starving. They're going through fondant, they're eating their stores, they're happy, they're healthy. And then now, the smartest investment I think that we did this time of year was put on those Hive Alive pollen patties because they are just going to town, eating them up. And I just have to say this newsflash: just because we give our bees pollen patties this time of year in Ohio does not mean our bees are going to brood up prematurely or get out of control or start making brood factories. We've talked about this many times. There's several things bees need to start brooding up. Just giving them pollen patties is not one of those. So that's what we've been busy, Bruce. It's this is one of those years when I look back, I'll always remember last year, the end of last year, going through the wintertime. And I think as what starts to separate the backyard beekeeper approach versus sideliner versus commercial is when I look back now, you know, I'm looking back to our success this year as being a team. There were so many of us all working together, doing all these different tasks. that led to our bees being prolific and happy and healthy. And so I owe a big shout out to our crew, to our family here, for just stepping in, pitching in, and making it happen. And so that's kind of where we're at, Bruce, where I'm in a weird place of gratitude, thankfulness, at the same time frenzy, because just like the sign said, spring wasn't waiting on anyone to get ready. It was just boom, here it is. Whoop, there it is.
Whoop, there it is. Yeah, you're right. Similar here, we're just I'm just trying to catch up with everything. I've had a couple of really fun experiences the last couple of weeks. First of all, Brian Lee came down and trying to find, yeah, Brian Lee came down from Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, I guess maybe almost 3 weeks ago now. And we set up a bunch of splits. I guess it was a couple of weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I tried to use Corey Stevens' method where we went in and set the splits up a week early. And then I pulled them actually 5 and 6 days later. It was a little bit earlier than I planned originally, but dropped some queen cells in them a week, last Friday. Let's see, almost 2 weeks ago now. My time is getting away from me so fast, but it's been almost 2 weeks ago we dropped some cells in there. So I'm going to maybe peek in a few of those this coming weekend and see what that looks like. But that was a lot of fun having Brian down, helping me out with that, and just kind of trying that system out. I really like how things work the way we did it. And I've got a video out on that's doing pretty well. If you haven't seen it yet, I think you'd enjoy watching. It's a little bit longer, but I have all 3 steps of what we did in there. And so it's really like 3 videos in one, and it's just start to finish. It really turned out, I think, pretty well with the method I used. This past weekend on Saturday, I woke up about 5 a.m. and drove over to, I guess, kind of South Georgia, Southeast Georgia, just kind of northeast of Valdosta, the Adele area, over in that area. And I hung out with Seth Hill, and we worked like crazy all day long. Man, that guy right there is incredible. And he's got a new YouTube channel with a couple of videos. He's doing a great job with that already. And tomorrow night, the video of that experience, the main collab video is going to drop at 9 o'clock Eastern. Mm-hmm. And so, if you want to jump on there, it'll be a premiere. And then I think he's going to have one drop just right after that. And so that'll be kind of fun to watch the different take of the video that we got that day. We worked literally, I think he had around, you can watch the video and see the details, around 59 or 60 colonies there. And we broke out a lot of splits in a hurry. I learned a lot from him. We started off a little slow. He was explaining everything we were trying to film. And then once we kind of put the cameras down and went to work, man, we just busted it hard. It was so much fun working with that guy. And Greg, you know him, you know Seth quite well. I know him, now I know him a lot better, but he is always smiling and he's always working. He never slows down. His motor never stops. And that was just such a fun day. I drove home. I was a little concerned because we got done about dark with what we were doing. And I had to drive home after that, after working all day, and stopped by Subway and got some dinner. And then I hit the road, and man, that was a tough. South Georgia is very rural for those who may not know. There's a little town here or there, but it's just like little country roads. And it's just, man, that drive home was tough, but I made it. I'm here to talk about it. And it was a long day, but man, it was so much fun. So I hope you look forward to that video. It'll be dropping, like I said, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern. And hopefully some of you can join me on that if you get a chance. And if not, then of course, watch it later. That's fine. But so that's kind of what I've been up to as far as the bees are going. I think that they possibly look overall stronger than they ever have. And guys, I'll tell you, the attitude of my bees this year has been much, much better. I think that I attribute that to a couple of things. Of course, I think that, Greg, some of the genetics I got from you are playing a role in that. They haven't had a chance to mate with yet. I mean, because we put them in there late last summer or anything like that. But there is an overall more gentle attitude of my bees, I think. But I just think they're healthier. I think they're more mite free. They're not mite free, but they have fewer mites. I've made sure to keep the fondant on the light ones this year, and just tried to kind of stay on top of things. I haven't been digging in them all winter long. I've just kind of did what I had to do just to kind of pop the lids and see what they needed. And so I haven't been just going through them. Typically I get in them a lot all the time. And this year I kind of try to let them do their thing a bit. And so far this year, I do have probably identified 4 or 5 that are still pretty nasty that I'm going to try to figure out how to fix, maybe change the queens out this summer, or whenever I get a chance. But I'm dropping some cells in them from a good queen breeder over in Florida. This past week or a couple weeks ago we broke out. I think I dropped 40 cells. I think we made about 35 splits, and so hopefully those genetics will help combined with the drones, and then get more Greg stock in and get some Aquaria stock in. And so I'm getting there. It's going in the right direction. I'm really happy with the attitude. And I did realize this past Saturday, even working in bees over there, they were not at all aggressive, but they do get, they can get a little agitated when you're working in them really fast and trying to get some things done. And so I just think that bees sometimes get a little bit spicier upset when you're moving like we had to move. And so but man, they were so gentle. A lot of those bees, though, you just see some when you watch the video, you'll see some of them were just so gentle, man. You break those things open and they're flying around, some of them, but the ones in the hive, a lot of them are just kind of just slowly, kind of like yours, Greg, just kind of working the frames and just so gentle and calm. So that was a lot of fun. But that's kind of what's going on in my world. So I'd like to go ahead and maybe start diving into the topic here a little bit. Brian, why don't we start with you a little bit? Just kind of talk about some aspects of hobby beekeeping. I know we've got people on this chat right now in the comments that fit every category. We've got some people that probably have one colony, all the way up to probably some commercial beekeepers in here that have a lot. So let's talk about kind of what you consider to be a hobby beekeeper, Brian, and kind of some tips and tricks that you've learned over the last couple of years keeping bees that can kind of help folks who might be looking at that as their main goal.
I want to share something here, though, with everybody. And let me know if you can see that. As the time commitment of beekeeping by operation size. And this was from University of Florida. And one of the things, actually, that when I was doing the program down there, I had this to look at. And the Hobbyist, and I kind of disagree with the number of colonies that they have on here. They have, anywhere from 1 to 10. Well, that could vary a little bit, but, this is just kind of like a rough estimate. But, they have 1 to 10. And already, like what we've discussed, I'm hearing the number of hours. Greg says I still have, several hours tonight. And you were working until into the dark, and it just entirely fits this time commitment that they have, because if you look at the Hobbyist right here, it says, and this is just a rough estimate, I mean, it says up to 3 hours needed to work 10 colonies every 7 to 10 days. And that's that 7 to 10 day rule that, Ian spoke about also. And it has on here for Sideliner, up to 50 hours needed every 7 to 10 days. But if you look in the bottom, it says frequent night and weekend work. Sideline beekeepers usually engage in typical migratory beekeeping practices, requiring bees to be moved at night, and it talks about some other things. On the commercial side here, extreme frequent night and weekend work. And I love that, it's talking about all this stuff. And if you look at the layout of each, so to say, operation size, they say, it just fits us to a T, and on the Hobbyist side, I think I more keep myself kind of in that lane just because of the time commitment that my apiary, that it needs. And that's always what I've said. I have a limited number of hours that I can dedicate to my apiary. So that's why I keep myself grounded with the number of colonies. And I've always had, 11 that's the most colonies that I have ever had in my apiary. Now, what's going to take place this year will probably test me as a hobbyist, just because, yes, I kind of got some things fine-tuned and I had a little bit of success. I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, though, just because, we have this little spell here, but I think all the colonies were sitting at a good spot. but this year will test me just time wise because, I always say I have a limited number of hours to dedicate to beekeeping. And when I go, I've got some queens coming from Jose. I I bit the bullet and I got a couple virgins coming from Corey. I just thought, well, let me see what's going on here. So I probably will end up close to the 20 mark that people are talking about. And that's just it's going to be a chat. I know. Look at Greg and Greg. We get this hashtag closet sideliner. Um, you know, and I I don't want to expand
Hashtag
so
22.
far that I can't properly manage the colonies, just because the amount of time that I can spend in the apiary is so little. If I could take an entire day of the week and say, yeah, I'm going to work the bees for an entire day, then maybe I could expand a little bit more, but I typically don't have that. And with my job, where there's times where I'm traveling and I could be gone, Mother Nature's going to give me a kick and it's going to keep me, I mean, she'll basically put me where she wants me with the number of colonies, you know, and that's why I stay in kind of that more hobbyist realm. And I don't really also, when you look at the different categories, so to say, of beekeepers, the hobbyist and then a sideliner and a commercial. A hobbyist, you keep a number of, colonies, and there are those hobbyists out there that, they want to have the bees just to have the bees, just to help, Mother Nature. You want to help pollinate, you want to keep them by the garden so that they, help out your garden and things like that. They're really not looking into expanding into like a commercial realm where you're selling a lot of products at farmers markets and a lot of things online. And so I think that's the one thing that separates a lot of hobbyists from going further is just the time commitment and not really wanting to turn the apiary into a business. you know and there always is, like, even at my scale, yeah, I sell honey, but it's mainly, I would say, 95% of what I sell is word of mouth. It's, from people in the family. They're telling, friends and that, hey, if you're looking for honey, I know where you can get some. So I'm really not going like in a commercial direction. It's just, I think also, like, I kind of keep myself somewhat in the hobbyist realm also. It's not really the money, because I mean, I could go a little further, expand further, but where I have myself positioned, I think from last year and this year already, um, it's kind of self-sustaining almost, with the number of colonies that I have, and I don't have huge expenses. So, where I'm at, and with the honey sales that I have, if I had 50 colonies, if I had, 60 colonies like Seth, if I had 100 and whatever colonies like you, every time you expand out, it also, set aside from the time commitment, you have to look at the equipment. Well, when I'm going to treat for mites, it's easy to go and place an order and get, buy whatever treatment you're going to use for 11 colonies. The expense, it doesn't cost much, but now if I expand out, every time you expand, and I think others have talked about this. I think even when we were on a talk with Ian, he had said 1,600 colonies is kind of like the limit for him, because if he goes any further, well, then he's got to get a larger building, and then he's got to do this and buy this equipment. And so, he's kind of grounded at the 1,600 mark. But I think that's the short of it. I could keep going for a long, long time, but,
Sure.
the hobbyists, I think it is a unique group of beekeepers because there are those, like I said, out there that just they want to have them just to help out, because everybody knows the stories of how there's such a decline in the number of honeybees. So, a lot of people, they want to get them. And, sometimes also, I mean, we've had, and I'm going to bring it up, we've had the flow hive, that really pulled in a lot of people into the beekeeping hobby. And, and it did to me. That's how I started. I saw this and I'm like, oh my gosh, you mean I can go out there and turn this little thing and I don't have to do anything and I get this magical honey, and Greg and I, we did see that it does work. Um, but there's those hobbyists that they keep it out there, and I've watched a lot of programs even where there's these natural, more organic and natural restaurants where they'll have a flow hive or they'll have a beehive there, and it's just more for here's that little bit of honey, you know. But they're really not looking to expand out into like your realm of being the sideliner, because the time commitment, man, I can't even imagine if I had, with the full-time job and then I had to dedicate those countless hours. And when you say, we're dropping 40 cells, I'm like, well, I'll do that over about 6 years. I will do that ever in a weekend. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's the short skinny of it, at least for me.
Yeah, it's not the dropping the cells that takes the time, it's the preparing the colonies and pulling the splits that take the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so kind of the way I look at it, and David Burns, I appreciate you being on here and for the super chat earlier. Thanks, Greg, for yours as well. I really appreciate that, guys. It really helps. Every little bit helps the channel. It also helps us be able to do some things here that we couldn't do otherwise on the stream team. So appreciate everybody who's on here and for your participation in whatever way you can participate. But kind of the way I define it, people try to, I think, put the groups into numbers. Like hobbyist is up to 50 colonies, sideliner 50 to 200, 200, whatever. But the way I look at it is more kind of what are your goals? And I guess, yeah, what are your goals with what you're doing? I think I look at hobbyist kind of like what y'all talk about, Brian. It's like, if you're not making money at it, it's okay. It's just a hobby for
Mhm.
you. And if you can become self-sustaining, that's perfect. Because how many hobbies out there are self-sustaining? Most hobbies, are money pits in a lot of ways. Many hobbies are anyways. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I look at a hobbyist is you just want to have the bees to help the environment. You want to have honey for yourself. And you may want to even make just a little bit enough to self-sustain and maybe grow a little bit and just really feed the obsession, so to speak. But it's not really a business for you. You don't get concerned if you don't make money at it. It's just kind of something you enjoy doing, and it's a hobby. Sideliners to me are those who it is like a part-time job. Thanks, Brian. You didn't have to do that, man. I really appreciate it. Hobbyist beekeepers unite. I'm with you on that. But to me, sideliners, it's like it's become more of a part-time job. It is a business. You're
Mhm.
trying to make a go of it, make some money at it. I've got a frog in my throat. Excuse me. I was telling Brian before we got on, it seems like every time we start one of these, something just climbs up here in my throat. And I feel like I've got to, clear my throat all night long. But so I think in a way, sideliner beekeepers are just maybe a little, well, there's incredible variation in every aspect of beekeeping. But I believe, in my opinion, sideliners are just trying to do so many different things. There's so many different ways to make money or to do it as a part-time job. So many different things you could do. Thanks, Walter. Really appreciate it, man. Thanks for pitching in. So, in my case, everybody knows if you watch my channel that it is an absolute obsession. And I will tell you the beekeeping is an obsession, but also this darn YouTube thing just has me I'm obsessed with it. I'm trying to figure out how to create better content and how to, I really have kind of shifted towards more like what, in the past, it was like initially kind of documenting what I was doing and just trying to create content that I thought I would like to watch. What I've tried to shift into more lately is kind of like, what would you guys want to watch? What would people watching my channel want to see? And so I'm trying to figure out all the little intricacies of editing, and I'm trying to do these interviews and everything to not only give you enjoyable content, but also informative and stuff that'll help you in your own deal. So that is, and I am monetized. I do make a little bit of money at it, but that's another aspect of my Sideliner operation that is important to me. But as far as straight up Sideliner, you can get in trouble. Somebody earlier mentioned, how do you stop? How do you quit growing? And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like the bees just multiply. And what I found is that if I don't split, if I don't make more colonies, they're in the trees. They're going to split one way or another a lot of times. And I've gotten better at managing them, but still at times that happens. And Ashby Miller, he's another guy that I interviewed on the channel a while back. Recently, I put an interview up on the Intentional Beekeeping playlist or a video podcast that I have on here. But he was out there trying to put second boxes on and add space for the bees to keep them from swarming, because he wanted to make sure there were plenty of drones in the area. He's really trying to get the queen rearing thing going. And he currently is a Sideliner as well, trying to grow into commercial. And so I think there are a lot of Sideliner beekeepers, kind of like myself, that ultimately would like to be a commercial beekeeper in the future. But the things to consider as a Sideliner are, man, the hours are just crazy. You are out there after dark sometimes because you got things you got to get done. It's not to the extent of people like Greg. They're going to be out there till midnight doing it tonight or later probably, but it's just a different, it's a different level. And it's just not that it's better or worse. It's just, it takes a lot of time. I think as you move into the Sideliner thing, I think in a sense, when kind of it becomes more of a business to you, you do begin to focus more on ways to make some money, ways to utilize the products of the hive in a beneficial way. And so, but the thing about beekeeping in general, I hope I'm not rambling on here, is that you're always growing. I'm always growing and learning new things. My sites, I do have kind of a goal of where I want to go. That goal can kind of move a little bit, but just how to get there kind of shifts. Historically, I've been primarily a honey producer, and I still enjoy producing the honey, but now I'm starting to think more after talking, with Greg and Ashby and others and Corey, thinking more about maybe getting into the queen business a little bit, maybe selling bees a little bit. So that's kind of something I didn't really want to do before, but now it's just kind of, as they say, percolating in my brain. It's just kind of, bubbling up there that that's something I want to do. And so I've become much more intentional in trying to figure out the genetics, trying to get bees that other people would want to work, trying to figure out how to do that. And so that's one thing I love about beekeeping, is there's so many different things to do and ways to grow. And I think in Sideliner beekeeping, as in any other aspect of it, there's just so many ways to do it. You can't really put anybody in a box. Like, you can't say, no pun intended, in a box. You can't say Hobbyist is this, Sideliner is this, because it's so different. But that's kind of, Sideliner is that part-time deal where you're not really, it's not your income, it's not your family income, you're not feeding your family with it, but it is a business that you want to grow and you do want to make a profit at it. It is somewhat about the money. It is about the bees, yes, but you try to figure out how to be more efficient in order to make a profit. And so how each person decides to do that is really up to them and their goals. So I hope that kind of helped out kind of what some of my thoughts are. Thanks again, David. That's the second one from David. I appreciate that, David, so much, man. And by the way, Dave is doing lives each week. I believe he does them on Thursday nights, doesn't he? At 8 o'clock.
Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central.
Yeah, so be sure and tune into that if you can tomorrow night. That'd be great. Of course, we know David is a very talented and skilled at what he does, and he's got some valuable information. Everything he does is done with the purpose to help folks out. And so I'd encourage you to check that out tomorrow night. Thanks so much, David. But I'd like to go ahead and kind of maybe shift and move into your thoughts, Greg, as far as kind of what we've talked about and moving on into that commercial thing. I did do an interview before we move on with Gus Mitchell. And, we've talked to you a lot here, Greg, about, Gus is doing a commercial operation with about 300 to 400 colonies, which many would consider to be a Sideliner sized operation. And you're kind of currently in a similar situation, aren't you, Greg, as far as the number of colonies you have? So you have to pull every angle and avenue out of that to be able to make a profit out of it. Kind of, Greg, why don't we let you take it away here and let us know what you think about that.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks again to Uncle Dave. It's funny. So many folks think that David and I are related, and it's we'll just let them keep thinking that because it's fun. But David, thanks for the super chats. Yeah, and I think we can't say thank you enough to everyone who tunes in, who listens, who literally lends us your ears as we kind of just hash out our own individual beekeeping journeys, sharing our experiences. And I just want to remind folks that not a single one of us on here are coming from a place of authority or saying you have to do it this way or by this information is the only way to go about it. There are so many different voices. If we look to what makes our bees special, what makes nature special, what makes the farming special, is diversity, different ideas, different approaches, different genetics, different methods, different styles, and even what radio station is playing in the truck, whether it's driving to 4 hives or 400. Diversity, I think, is one of the most beautiful things of us could do well by maybe spending more time just accepting and appreciating that rather than trying to find so many ways to classify and divide. There's enough us and them out there as it is. The last thing we should be doing as beekeepers is using every other thing in beekeeping to also turn it into an us and them situation. I'm going to cool my jets on that, though, before I get myself in trouble. But I just wanted to say that all scales matter. All hives matter, whether it's 4 hives, 40, or 400, or 4,000. They all matter. And just because some of us might be running more colonies than you can imagine running, doesn't make what you do any less important. So we appreciate everyone and what they bring to the table. That's what it's about, is always being beekeepers and sharing that we are beekeepers. There's no in parentheses, but only if you have this many colonies. Or so I want to throw that out there because I know what it's like to be the small guy and you're working up and you're trying to find where you fit in. You're trying to find your tribe literally and all these different things. So I just want to thank folks for spending time with us and sharing their journeys with beekeeping too. I think when we have the conversation, is this backyard beekeeping? Is it sideline beekeeping? Is it commercial beekeeping? My first question is, and I mean this respectfully, but who cares? What does it really matter? What's interesting, and I think what it's important to learn from that is how the systems change. More importantly, it's not a classification. It's not an extra feather in the cap or a star you wear on a patch on a shirt. The difference is when you go from backyard to sideline to commercial, the equipment changes. Not just the equipment that you use for your bees, but the equipment to get your equipment to the bees. What also changes quickly is it a full-time job? Is what you're doing your full-time job? Is beekeeping your full-time job? If it's not, then you're probably sideline scale, and that's totally cool. If you don't look at beekeeping as a job at all, you're probably backyard or hobbyist, which is totally cool. If you look at it as a job, and this is where you make your income, if you make this is what brings bread home to your family as your primary source of income, you're probably commercial. So I think that those are just a couple easy things to kind of consider. I can remember being backyard. Matter of fact, I'm looking forward to seeing Brian here in a couple days at the West Virginia conference. One of the presentations that we're giving is called Homestead Beekeeping: Making Ends Meet and Creating Abundance. Because just because you are working at a hobbyist or a backyard scale does not mean that you still can't make ends and create abundance in the bee yard on the homestead with your bees. There are so many ways to do that, and I hope to be able to share a lot more on that in that presentation on how we did that even back then and how that's kind of shaped what we do now. Back then, it was a little John Deere 110 lawn tractor and a lawn cart, and we would carry our 4 to 5 hive bodies out and our frames and a dozen or 2 quart jars of feed, and it was awesome. We rode it out to the yard, we did our thing, it was awesome. Okay, eventually that changed to where it was a 4-wheeler and a bigger trailer taking all the equipment out, and then it was the back of a half-ton pickup truck to take all of our equipment out and do all the things. And now it's a flatbed truck, it's a skid steer, it's bigger trailers. We are ordering things by the semi load. Everything changes. And why does that even matter? Well, if we want to better understand, what can we actually learn from the three different scales? If we only say there's three, there are so many nuances and scales within each scale, that we could spend years talking about. What's interesting though is you eventually learn how to do enough things right to where the bees become an asset that you have a return on. And as that asset grows and your returns become higher, you invest that back into your bees, and then the bees grow and they grow and they grow. For us, it's a lot of money, but to add a box on everything is anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 every single time you're going to add a box minimum. That's a lot of money. That's a lot to invest in. That's a lot of time and logistics on getting all that equipment. Right now, as I'm sitting here, I'm watching my face absolutely just turn fire red, not because I'm angry, but I've been out, and it was when we first got out in the field today, it was 23 degrees. And we eventually got clear up to a super balmy 50, but we've been out in the wind and the breeze and the cold all day long. And when we get done here shortly, I'll be back out until midnight or 1 o'clock. That I don't get any extra pats on the back, and I'm not looking for it. But it's when you create a beast, it's one thing, and you've heard us say it before, it's one thing to learn how to create a beast. It's something altogether to learn how to maintain it. And it's the maintaining the scale that you create is, I think, what separates backyard, sideline, and commercial. There are certain things that we can all learn from everybody at each scale. What I love about what Brian does is Brian is still able to be very intimate with his colonies. If he wants to name that queen, if he wants to name that colony, if he wants to spend time and know exactly what's going on, he can. And that's beautiful. And I remember what that was like. Something happens with your relationship with the bees when you go from 11 to 50 to 500 is, yes, you have moments where it's an intimate connection, but it starts to become intimate as a whole rather than the individual colony. Well, why does that matter? Well, I miss those days. I really do. When it was 4, 8, or 12 colonies, there was something special about not knowing what you were doing at all. I mean, frankly, still feel like we don't know what we're doing most days. But when you don't know what you're doing, and that's okay, and you are just so infatuated and in love with the process, I love that. Eventually that changes. You gain enough experience. You keep your bees alive. They are growing faster than you can do anything with, and they start growing and growing. Then you start making nukes. You start flirting around with making queens. Then all of a sudden, what was a hobby now is creating revenue, and now you have to decide what you do with it. One thing that absolutely fires me up is when everyone wants to talk about sustainability. Everybody wants to talk about the sustainable bee yard and the sustainable farms and a sustainable ecological system, and on and on and on and on and on. But all of a sudden, everyone hits the brakes and everyone gets weird when we start talking about financial sustainability. It's one thing to be physically sustainable. I get it. You did a good job. Your bees made it through the winter. They're coming through the spring. Congratulations. That's physical sustainability. But where everyone gets uncomfortable is when we talk about financial sustainability. Can you actually sustain the growth of your bees or your homestead or your farm? Are you reinvesting those assets back into itself and growing and growing and growing? Are you building enough resiliency within your system that when those storms come through and wipe you out, you still have a plan? You still have enough resilience built into the system that you can bounce back from? One of the greatest quotes I think that I ever heard, and I'm probably going to butcher it, is by Mike Tyson. And it said, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. That's beekeeping, right? So how we react to that punch in the mouth is different when it's 4 or 10 colonies, when it's 20 or 50, or when it's 500. And so I think learning from each other on how we work through all of these different systems, how we keep our bees alive and healthy, and what equipment and methods it takes to do it, I think that's the important takeaway. It's more important to learn how we're doing these things at these scales more so than trying to divide each other by saying, well, this guy's only a backyard beekeeper. Well, this guy's a commercial beekeeper, so therefore he must. No, that's not what it's about for me. But anyways, I'm going to settle down here, Bruce, because I'm going to start getting fired up, and I don't want to go there tonight.
That's okay. I know, and I'm sure this happens in other states. I know here there's been a little bit of a, I don't know if we'll call it a rift, but there's just some jawing back and forth. I actually think it's getting a little better over the last year or two between some of the commercial beekeepers and hobbyists, and I think that some of the commercial guys are beginning to realize or express an interest in helping the hobbyists out a little bit more, because they realize that you can work together and everybody has a part in the system, so to speak. For example, if you have some commercial guys that are creating queens and nukes, then they can sell those with the hobby beekeepers and help them out that way. And you can teach and become a mentor and really help grow the whole industry here in the state or so forth. And so I think that hopefully we can see some of those barriers being broken down. I think that's one of the ideas behind the entire philosophy of hive life, is that Cayman just decided that it was time for to bring the commercial people and the hobby people together. It's kind of like you said, Greg, when you're talking about commercial people, you're talking about feeding your family, you're talking about that being your primary source of income. And so your goal is to keep bees alive so that you can do that. And I know many people, you hear some people maybe in some bee clubs or whatever saying that the commercial beekeepers are destroying the beekeeping industry. Well, if they destroy the beekeeping industry, then they won't be eating unless they change jobs. And so the idea is to keep the bees alive. Everybody's got their own way of doing that, but there is a place for everyone at the table. Everyone has his place at the table, and that's what's important, is that we all, I think, hopefully that's what people are getting out of this whole stream team thing, is we're trying to share ideas with each other, trying to share thoughts and create an environment where people can feel welcome to share ideas and questions and reach out to us, and we can talk amongst ourselves, being the different type of beekeepers that we are, and hopefully be able to help people draw conclusions and improve their individual situation. So that's good stuff, man. Brian, I see you thinking there. Do you have something you'd like to add?
No, I was just typing in something.
I thought your wheels were turning there. I thought you wanted to say something.
No, there was a comment here. All hobbyists should go work for a commercial guy before going sideline. And I typed back, it's what I do when I go to Greg's. Makes me really want to be a hobbyist. Seeing a commercial apiary.
That's actually an important thing, because I do have people that approach me at times. They're interested in getting into beekeeping, and I usually try to tell them, look, first step would be to get yourself a jacket. If you don't want to do that, then I'll let you borrow one of mine, but come and just go through some bees with me, because you really don't know if you're going to like it until you do it, because it's not for everybody. Beekeeping, if you get stung, it hurts. And some people really, they don't have the experience they want to have when they get in those bees. And so it's always a good idea, I think, to go through some hives with someone. And I agree with that in a sense, in that, if you want to take it to the next level, go hang out with some of those people who are doing what you want to do and see if it's really for you. And, like we have Greg here, who's a valuable source of information. So many of the wise thoughts that he just gave us, that he has been through it already. So he can help those who want to get where he's at and even beyond. He can help give them some guidelines. I agree, Greg, with you totally, that so many people, and I'm guilty of this myself, don't consider the financial impact of everything. Because if you have 2 colonies in the backyard, if you just figure, and it, obviously these prices vary, but just say, for example, you have 2 colonies in the backyard set up, and they're double deeps and they're full of bees. They need honey supers. Just as a round number, each of those hives needs 2 medium supers with frames added on top. If you figure, just say $50 per box with the frames, that's $100 that's $100 per colony. That's $200 for those 2 colonies. Now you multiply that times 10. You multiply, you get up to 10 colonies. There's $800 more dollars. It's just like every colony, you can figure $100, and before you know it, you got 100 colonies. That ends up being those numbers that Greg was talking about, tens of thousands of dollars. And so
Yeah.
it becomes very expensive very fast. But then you can also pencil out, Greg, I believe you can pencil out if you say per frame of honey, a medium frame, you're looking at about 3 pounds, just say on average. And if you sell that honey for, like I sell it for $8 a pound at retail, or you could maybe 10 or 12 bucks wherever you live, then you can see that each of those frames can end up being, let's just say $30 a piece of value each year. And so you got to be able to figure that out, but you do have to have the money up front and figure out how to pencil that out. And keeping bees is just one part of it. Then you got to figure out how to actually afford the bees and then how to make a profit. And so that's the trick. That's what we're all trying to figure out how to do, I think.
You know, what Greg said though, too, just about the scale, you know, as far as going out, you have a certain number of buckets, and it's easy to go out. You know, you have a little 4-wheeler that you ride out into the yard with, you know, and now he's at, you know, his truck that he has, the skid steer and all that kind of stuff. That's why I stay grounded where I'm at, just because I have my SUV. And I think the most equipment I ever hauled is my trip, you know, when I was down at Greg's and I was just prepping to expand for this year. The seats were down, and literally my entire car was
jammed
full,
back. Yeah.
and even the front seat. And I was driving home, and I'm like, I'm like, oh, geez, what am I doing? You know, but that's why I stay kind of grounded also, like with the colonies that I have, you know, at the farmer's property. I only keep 2 colonies there just because when I'm going to haul equipment, you know, if I expand it out, and he's told me, he said, he calls me kid. He's like, you know, kid, if you want to put, you know, a good 10 or 12 out here, you could. And I would love to, but I don't have the vehicle to do so, because then if I'm going to haul supers, even when I'm putting supers on, you know, I would have to make half a dozen trips back and forth hauling stuff. So that's why I stay kind of grounded even there, you know. And it is, as you scale your operation, you have to look at every little detail, you know, just because even I think where I'm at, I'm probably getting towards the top end of a hobbyist. But scaling equipment is, you know, when I first started, I think it was a 3-frame, you know, manual extractor, you know, and I would sit there and it was fun, you know. I'd sit with my 2 colonies, 3 colonies, and I'm spinning the honey and watching it. And, you know, now I've scaled up where I have that 9-framer, I have the uncapping tank, I have, you know, everything. I have a bench and everything set up where I can bottle. So I've scaled to handle, I guess, the number of colonies I have. And if I were to scale up more, you know, well, then I've got to look at all the additional equipment. And then I'm looking at, well, do I have a building that can hold all of this equipment?
Yeah.
So as you scale, not only are you spending $100 on a colony, you know, for supers, but, you know, we all know, like we just said, it's $100 per colony. Where are you going to store the equipment? Because the equipment's not cheap. And if you don't have the proper, you know, storage, I mean, it's just, you know, who knows what could happen to the equipment, you know. So you could be putting money, investing money into your operation, and your equipment's just, it's just going to get trashed. So,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, that's super important. I start off with, I've got a little 10 by 16 shed in my backyard. And now, I mean, it quickly outgrew that. And then I had a little place up on the farm where I was sticking some stuff and storing some boxes. And now I've got, you know, 200 supers and or more. And then I've got the deeps. I've got so much, I just can't do that. So I do happen to have the advantage of having a spot where I can put it up there, a bay in the barn up there at my mom's place. And so that's another thing to consider, because if you do live in a situation where you don't have any place to store this stuff, that can be an issue. And Greg's building buildings for this now. He's like, he's at that next level. And so, those boxes take up space. It all takes up space. And it's just a crazy thing. It's fun to grow, but you just got to be smart and intentional about what you're doing. Greg, you mentioned you have about an hour with us. And we're getting to that time. Could you just go through if there's anything you'd like to add, maybe talk about what it takes to maybe scale up, things to consider? I know you've discussed some of that already, but any other words of wisdom for us? I think we'll start with the commercial aspect to kind of work back down in that respect. If there's any final thoughts you'd like to share with us, of course, we'd love you to stick around the whole time, but I know you've got to get back to work. So what other words of wisdom do you have for us? What else would you like to share with us? And we'll kind of start back at the commercial and work our way back down.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. And I appreciate you guys taking the time out from your families and whatever, and all the things that you guys are doing to make this stream team thing happen. All the folks who are checking in and spending time with us. I apologize, but I do got to get moving here shortly. I think some of the things to think about is if you're thinking about going from hobbyist to sideline or sideline to commercial, how risk adverse are you? There's a lot of risk in all of this. How much money do you want to do it? Have you built the experience or the skill sets to get to that point? One of the things we're going to talk about at our presentation at the West Virginia Beekeepers Conference is that mindset is more important than skill set. And I will argue that point until the cows come home, literally, because you can have the skill set. You may know how to swing the hammer or what to do with these two hands, but if you aren't right here, you won't be right here. Okay. Even if you don't know exactly how to do something, if your mindset is on point and you're able to look at that situation constructively and critically, and you can sort through and you can see what's going on, you can make decisions that will put you in a positive position and you can move forward. No matter if it's 2 colonies, 20, 200, or 2,000. Now, we don't have 2,000 colonies yet. We will, but we are growing with the business. When you talk about the words sideline beekeeper, what does that even mean? What sidelining is like moonlighting. It is a side hustle. A lot of us are, our family and me personally, I am so intimately aware of side hustle that I could spend hours and days talking about it. It's because we have been self-employed for decades and decades and decades. We have worked one business, created a side hustle. The side hustle has now then been the main hustle. Then you pick up another. That is a constant evolution of entrepreneurship. So beekeeping was an easy fit because of the mindset. Our mindset was already there. We were already relying on us for paychecks. We already knew how those systems work. So now when we take something we're passionate and that we love, now we just have to put those into the right systems. Systems thinking is one of the biggest things, whether it's 2 hives, 20, or 200. Looking at your environment, your system, finding out how everything actually works, how they can work within themselves, and how you can leverage the strengths of those things. That's what gets you climbing that ladder exponentially and can get you to the place to where, does it hurt to have to spend $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 or $34,000 on equipment? Yes, believe me, it hurts. And sometimes you feel like you never stop bleeding. But eventually what starts to happen is you look at those opportunities, you invest in that equipment, you've built enough experience that you can move those systems in a forward direction to where now that $30,000 investment in equipment or frames, whatever that it might be, is such an incredible investment, because now you've just 50%, 70%, 100%, you've doubled your money because you had what you needed in place for those bees to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. What does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? I have no idea. You can have a backyard, you can have 2 colonies and take it seriously and treat it like a business. So I would argue you can have a 2 colony business 100%. Matter of fact, this might be a healthy challenge for folks. If you have just, let's say, 2 colonies right now, if you have 2 hives, right, and you are in a position to where the risk of losing 2 colonies or the investment you have for 2 colonies is something that you are you can swing it. It's not a big deal for you. Cool. What I'd like for you to do is look at those 2 colonies as a business and start looking at it as units and assets. I want you to still 100% have the love and the passion and the intimacy. But there's something happens within our mindset when we look at something as an asset or a unit. Now, all of a sudden, literally, every stroke of the hive tool, every movement with our feet left and right, forward and backwards, every trip from the truck, what trailer we bring, what we load on the trailer to go out with us, every little thing matters. Why does it matter? Because it's energy output from us. No matter if it's walking back and forth, it is not that long ago when I can remember walking 300 feet to the workshop to go build a couple frames because I didn't know what I needed, build them, walk all the way back out to the bee yard and put them in, then get there and realize, you know what, I needed one more box, walk all the way, and I would just spend all day walking back and forth. As you grow, you build efficiencies within your systems. So not only are you making your money work for you, but your time that you're spending doing it is way more efficient. So you become more efficient with your resources, is what I'm trying to say here. And for me, that's the fun part, is looking at it as a system, always trying to improve the system and grow the system. And for me, you know, why in the world, out of all the things that anybody could ever do with their life, why in the world would you choose beekeeping to be a full-time job? Well, because we're crazy. We're nuts. We're beekeepers. You know, I feel like we're called to do, whether it's 2 colonies, 20 or 200, when you're called to be a beekeeper, there's a path for you. And I think when you understand that and you accept that and you move forward and you put yourself out there, doors open, you walk through, doors open, you walk through. Next thing you know, you're in a situation where a semi-load full of equipment is coming and you're not freaking out. You know where it's going to go. You know what it's for. It wasn't always like that. So I want to encourage everybody that if you thinking that you want to turn beekeeping into a business, you can. If I can do it, you can do it. But mindset is more important than skill set. Start where you are, with what you have, with what you know, and just grow with the bees. And if it's a business, just look at it like that. Invest in those assets and in those units. What can you do to grow them? And try to keep as much of that intimacy like Brian has with it for as long as possible. But I've got some breaking news here. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to let this. I'm not even. Brian, am I supposed to be letting everybody know this?
What's that?
Well, I feel a little weird saying this, but does everybody know that Brian has been in the closet about being a sideline beekeeper? It's true. It's true. It's true, right? Huh?
It's
It
crazy.
Is. I mean, you just put the graph up that said had these magical numbers that some university, they put it on there, so it has to be true. 11 colonies, Brian. 11 colonies. And you're going to be past that. So you are
Crazy.
Bruce, anyone out here who has 12 colonies or more, I want us to all just let's congratulate Brother Brian for just being in. You are now in the Sideliners Beekeepers Club. Way to go!
He's in the Sideliner camp.
That's right.
He is.
It won't be long. We'll have members only jackets. We'll say sideline members only. Right. We'll have secret handshakes. We'll only let certain people into the rooms. Right. Super private chats. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, guys, I could spend all night long. I really wish I had more time tonight. I hope you guys understand. If you're heading out to the West Virginia Beekeepers Conference, we are really looking forward to seeing you. We've got, like I said, we're giving 2 talks. One of them is Hard Lessons Learned Growing a Bee Yard. The second talk is Homestead Beekeeping, Making Ends Meet and Creating Abundance. We're doing a roundtable, I think, with Humberto, Fred Dunn, I think maybe even Paul Kelly, talking about Facebook and social media and beekeeping. What does that mean? What's going on there? There is going to be some fantastic speakers. including Paul Kelly. There's so many. My brain's fried, which is why I keep saying the same name over and over again. For some reason,
That's
Paul
okay.
Kelly is easy to remember because his booth is right next to mine. But we'll have a booth. We're going to have the whole crew. I mean, we're all going to be there in full force. We're going to bring what we can for our booth. We've got some. Well, I'll just say it here because we have not had an opportunity to get any of the pre-sales or special pricing out. But we've got a lot of fun stuff that we're bringing. We have the brand new multi-purpose Apame bottom board, 4 wooden boxes. We're bringing a load of those. They are fantastic bottom boards. If you like the Apame availability of choking down or having multiple entrances, you're looking for a pollen trap. You're looking for that really nice, solid, sturdy bottom. Then this might be for you. We'll have those there. We're bringing the Hive Alive protein patties. We'll have those along with us too. We'll have a limited supply of wax-dipped Pura Hive boxes. We'll have a limited supply of some foundation by Premier. Of course, we'll have our 1-gallon and 2-gallon bucket feeders and plugs, and we will have high fives to go around all day long. We've got a podcast studio set up. We're going to try to catch some content too. It's going to be live action, and looking forward to it.
Greg.
So.
Well, before you get out of here, Greg, just briefly, I think most people here probably know about your channel, but talk about your channel and the podcast that you do every week, in addition to the stream team, because you're doing a great job with that. If you could go ahead and give yourself a selfless plug there.
Selfless plug. Well, I got to blame my wife, Susie. Every good idea that we've ever had in our marriage, in our business on the farm, I make no bones about it. She is just on point. She keeps me from myself, from chasing my tail. But with sharing our family's journey with beekeeping, we're into everything. Raising our own pigs and making bacon, growing a garden and canning all of the goodies that come along with it. Of course, the beekeeping goes hand in hand with all of that. But we've had so many fun experiences raising cows, milking cows, raising chickens and turkeys, raising a garden, grafting and raising fruit trees. Just all the things that you would look at a homestead and say, oh my gosh, look at these. That's what we do. It's a part of who we are. And so we share that. Every Sunday night, Susie and I do a live chat on the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel. You have no idea what we're going to talk about. It could be water glassing chicken eggs. It could be freeze dryer fun. It could be talking about just the nitty gritty, painful blood, guts, and mud of trying to scratch out a living on the farm. You might be talking about raising a large family. We have guests on occasionally too. But that's every Sunday night. We go live on the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel. There's been so many great folks who are checking in with us and coming back every week. It makes it a lot of fun to see everyone there too. So we've been really busy trying to do that. Paul, one of our favorites there, Paul Hale, is on from Hale Hives. We wanted to help encourage and inspire folks to grow their own food this year. So we started something called the hashtag Cheap Seed Challenge. You can go right to your local Dollar General and you can get 10 seed packs for $1. That you're talking about an enormous amount of food. Have fun, get your hands in the dirt, know where your food comes from, have that love and that passion of seeing that seed, that little tiny seed, this little tiny seed that you can hardly even weigh, you can hardly even look at. You put into the soil, you give it some love, you give it some water, you give it some sunlight, and that one seed grows and can literally feed an entire family. That is a beautiful thing. One of my favorite quotes is actually Tim McCandless, Tennessee Tim McCandless said it. And if I can get the quote right, it goes, you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed. That's beautiful. That's what homestead life is about. That's what real, true wealth is, being able to pull an apple that you've grown, is to pull them fresh tomatoes out and can them. That is, for us, the definition of true wealth. So we love sharing that message. We love sharing those things on the homestead with everybody every Sunday night on the Nature's Image Farm podcast. And I could go on and on and on. But guys, I really do appreciate you. Looking forward to seeing you again here soon. And I know I'll get caught up on the rest of the chat later. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, all the cross support. We have some really great folks who check out Bruce's channel and Brian's, and they go back and forth and they show us all love. We really do appreciate you guys. So
Absolutely.
on that note, I'll remind folks like I normally do to be the lighthouse, be the change that you want to see in this world, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for having me on again, Bruce and Brian.
Yes, sir. It'll be on your channel
see you
next
soon,
week,
Greg.
I think, Greg. I think it'll be on your channel next week. So just to let you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
See you, man.
See you
We'll wrap
guys.
it up here. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. Greg, I'll see you
All right.
Friday. Yeah. Wow.
Wow, man. So where do we go from there?
Telling you. I know.
One thing that he said that is really important, and I guess I've kind of, really haven't thought about it, or it's never really clicked in my brain like it did just then, is how you do treat each colony as a unit. Like if you do that, then it can become easier it becomes you're more able to prepare. You're better able to prepare instead of, having these bees grow and then, oh my gosh, I can't keep up, which happens, I think, to not just me, but I'm sure it happens to other folks out there. If you look at that, if you've got, even say, just take Brian, for example, you got 11 colonies, and if you want to grow, you need to have the equipment to double that. And so you can plan for that. You look at each colony as a unit. And then I think Greg also said something real important there when he said, keep the love for the bees, enjoy the bees, continue to do that, but still you can look at it as a unit. You can still take the time. If you don't have a whole big number of colonies, if you don't have a huge amount of colonies, you can still take the time and really enjoy your time with the bees and love what you're doing with the bees. But that's a better way to prepare mentally and physically, and to prepare your skill set to be able to grow. Mm-hmm. And it actually, I think, in a sense, will take some of the stress off of the situation. If you prepare in advance and if you have an idea of where you're going, it's a lot easier to get there,
mm-hmm.
And so I think that was really wise. Man, there's so many things to unpack in what Greg said. I guess we can just let it speak for itself. There's not a whole lot to add to that as far as I'm concerned. And I think about what Greg said, how he would walk back and forth and put a few frames together and just do things a step at a time, and was quite inefficient, honestly. And I feel like I'm just starting to see the wisdom, or the ways that I can be more efficient with my time. Time is so valuable. You only have so much of it. And that's been one of the reasons that I've been limited in my growth, is because I just have not figured out how to be efficient. That's one reason I'm kind of hanging out with people like Seth this past weekend, who have been around, Bob Benny, who have been around commercial folks. And that's one reason I like to talk to Greg and other people. My local friend here, Tyler, who just has grown like crazy as a sideliner up to 1,000 colonies. You have to be efficient to do that. You have to look at it as a unit. You have to be prepared. And so I'm trying to learn from those people because I'm not really I haven't been able to figure it out by myself. And so that's one thing. One reason I think, Brian, we wanted to have this chat tonight was to kind of help folks determine that direction and help them kind of focus on that a little bit. So that's kind of, man, there's just so much that Greg said there. Greg has a way with words that I could only dream of having. He's just so good with it. I really appreciate it. Let's see. We got a question here. We can answer a few questions. Spirit of Toad says, how much time do you waste looking for queens? Much less than I used to. I used to really spend a lot of time doing that, but I've started to back off on that a little bit. In reality, most of what you do in a inspection is, most of what you do can be taken care of if you see eggs. If you see eggs, there's a queen in there, you can close it up and move on. Most of what you're doing. If you're trying to do splits and find the queen, sometimes you just have to, like, this is what we did with Seth this past Saturday. We just looked over the frame really closely, and if we didn't see a queen, we went ahead and put it in the split. And we may have gotten a few queens in those splits, but when you're trying to do it efficiently and with numbers, you can't really just spend a whole lot of time doing that. And so I don't spend near as much time as I used to looking for the queens, but every once in a while I'm in a situation where I really want to find her, and that's when I can't find her. So if I'm not looking for them, usually, or even this past Saturday, I found a lot of queens, and those are dark queens. They are marked, but even when they're marked, sometimes if they're dark, they're hard to see. And those queens just pop out at me. I just see them very easily. I was looking to see if the queen was on the frame, but I wasn't specifically looking for her. Like, I didn't keep looking until I found her. I'd look real closely at both sides of the frame, back and forth a couple of times, and if I didn't see her, I put it in the split. But there's no telling how many queens I found as I did that. Just I don't know. It's just kind of weird how they jump out at you when you don't necessarily have to find them.
I used to always like to find them, but like you said, I mean, you can look at certain signs. You can look at what the colony is doing, as far as even activity out front, And then when you're pulling frames, if you're seeing eggs, you've had a queen in there, within the last whatever amount of hours. So you necessarily, in the grand scheme of things, you don't have to find the queen, because when you do an inspection, really you're inspecting the colony as a whole. You're not inspecting, you're not pulling a frame to inspect one bee. You're inspecting the colony.
Depends on what you're trying to accomplish as well. Here's another question here that I think people have been wondering about. How are the bees doing down in California with all the nasty weather? I hope they're doing okay. I know that there have been issues, not just with us, with a lot of people. Just the weather has been rough out there. Before the bees went out there, it rained and there's a lot of mud and everything when they placed them in the orchards. And then our bees were there pretty early, so they sat out there and it was cold. There were only just a very few days where they could even fly, and so the colony sizes decreased. But they kept our bees there. They didn't send them home, so they were strong enough to keep them there. But I think things started looking pretty good, and then it got cold, and so I'm scared of what we're going to find when they get home. I just really don't know how they're going to look. So we'll find out pretty soon. I'm not sure what the date is for them to come back, but I'm sure it'll be in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks. They'll be back, or fairly soon, hopefully. I'm ready to get them back here and be able to kind of start managing them. I'm afraid we're going to have to do some recovery work on them and try and get them built back up this year. Normally they come back really strong, but this year I'm afraid it might be a different story. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
If when they do return, if you look at them and they're just in pretty rough shape, are you going to take the gamble again and send them back out?
I haven't decided yet. I really don't know what I'm going to do next year. A lot of it depends on how I can get my ducks in a row for some things I'm trying to do outside of the pollination. I've got a lot of things coming down the road as far as just trying to kind of work on better genetics, better queens, and a lot of things. And so I'm trying to just kind of get, I've got a little different direction I'm going now. So if I have some to send, I may do that, or I may just back off and focus on some different things. I'm just really not sure. I really haven't made up my mind what I want to do next year yet. I don't know that I'll let this year determine that, because I've had 3 or 4 other years of pretty good success coming back. And so this has been a bad year, but every year is not going to be a bad year, if that makes sense. And so I can't just let one year cloud. If that was the case, if you have one bad year with bees and you quit, I can't do that. So that's not going to be the only determining factor. It will definitely play a role in my decision making, but we'll see. To me, I don't love doing the pollination thing. It's kind of cool and everything, and it's kind of fun to do videos on, and it's just fun to, and it is a nice paycheck when the bees come back. But it is hard on the bees. It's hard on the beekeeper trying to build them up before they're really ready to build up. And so there are a lot of variables that are going to play there, things I need to consider. And I do have some things I'm working on kind of in the background, just some things I may try to do. I'm really trying to figure out, if you'll notice, I've done some videos with interviews with Ashby Miller and Corey Stevens. And I've been talking to Greg some about some of the queen stuff in the background and different people. And I really am interested in trying to develop a pretty good, a better, some queens in this particular area right here, somehow combining the good aspects of the local bees. We've got some rugged bees, some tough bees here, as far as like the genetics. They build up nicely, and I think that a lot of them are fairly mite resistant. I don't know. I haven't done specific testing until recently with the mite washes, and maybe try and figure out some things that I learned from Corey and Ashby and some different people and Greg, and just try to develop a nice South Alabama line of queens and bees here that we can maybe sell some queens or some nukes, or just I really am kind of getting more and more interested in the genetics aspect of things. And so that's kind of one direction I'm going to try to go. I also have 10 queens ordered from Corey, virgin queens, probably in May. We just introduced some nice genetics, I think, from kind of southeast of here in Florida with the last nukes. So we put some cells in there. And I plan on eliminating them. There are a few that are still pretty feisty, trying to eliminate some of those queens and get some better genetics in there. So I'm working on it. And that's kind of fun to me. And that's kind of where my focus is right now. but we'll see. You never know. I do
Yeah.
have a better idea of where I'm headed, but
The genetics are key. And I mean, just hearing you say how your colonies behavior wise, how they are now as compared to last year,
mhm.
I mean, that just speaks
Well,
volumes.
they're better. I mean, they're, last year, and it could be the year too. I don't know. Lisa, I know Lisa's on here. She's local.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how her attitude of her bees have been, but I see she just commented recently, so maybe she's able to comment now. But I don't know how her attitude is. But my bees have really been, I would say, average. If you could consider Africanized being a 10 out of 10 feisty, my bees were probably, I would say, because I don't think many people on here. There are probably a few, but not many of us on here have ever experienced true Africanized bees.
Right.
But I would say mine were probably a 5 or a 6 on average, and now I'd say they're probably about a 3 or a 4. By 5 or 6, that means that's more than I want. That's more of a feisty that I want. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I want them to be like a 0 or a 1. I want them to have a little bit of, be willing to defend themselves a little bit. But I think if I get my bees to a 2 or 3 range, that I'd be happy with that. That's kind of how I would kind of classify Seth's bees down in South Georgia as being like that. They were basically Bob's. I think a lot of Bob's genetics are in those bees, and they're just really nice bees, but they are flying around and they will, if you're too rough with them, they'll get after you a little bit. And they should,
Right.
if you're too rough with them, if you have, and we were moving pretty fast. We tried to be careful, but when you see the video, you'll see kind of just how many bees were flying around. It was just an unbelievable experience. We were in the middle of splitting those bees Saturday afternoon, 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. And the field bees were all coming back home. And it was just an incredible, I mean, it was almost like a swarm because they weren't really aggressively attacking us. You could walk right through them. We did have our bee jackets on, but they weren't just attacking us really ever all day long.
Hmm.
But they were just flying all around. And it was like a great big swarm just flying around us for a couple hours, right? There's bees just
Awesome.
everywhere. And it was really neat. And the sun was just at that right angle to where you could see them all flying. And it was just a really cool. Seth looked over there and said, "No, that's something." He's like, "It was really cool to look at it." And then I got the camera and I got some pretty good footage of it, which is in the video. So I hope you all enjoyed that video. But
That's awesome.
do we have any other questions? If anybody has any questions for us, if you could put them down here. We're kind of starting to wrap this up a little bit.
Yeah.
Greg just said so much good stuff there. There's not a whole
He
lot,
does. He
really a
always does.
whole lot to add. He's
Yeah.
just really has
Yeah.
it all kind of figured out. So if there's any questions, throw them in here, guys. And
Yeah. I'll be today, I think the package was delivered. I'll have a video coming up. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 weeks for this one, but I'm going to be testing 3 different pollen patties. So I'm doing a little experiment, so to say, for Hive Alive. I've been talking to David with Hive Alive, and for probably 2 months, and I'm going to run a certain number of colonies with the Hive Alive patties, certain number of colonies. There's 2 others that are more or less like their main competitors. And when I do this, I'm going to get very detailed with it. So it might not be like my normal video where it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like a vlog style, just me doing my thing. I'm going to take a scale and literally weigh down to the gram so that, folks see the actual percentage consumption, everything. So I've got that coming up. I'm excited to see the results from that. I know what they've done with the Hive Alive, patties. They've just plain out destroyed it. So I'm curious to see with these other ones what happens. So, but that's something I'll be working on here. As soon as the weather, more or less breaks, I think I'll be able to possibly check some things next week. Citizen science, as Ian
Yeah.
says.
That's right.
I think like tomorrow we're supposed to have like 57. Friday we're going to have like 57 also. So those would be perfect days, for me to just lift the top and, start that. But, I'll be in Cleveland, and then I won't be home in time that I can get into the colonies when it's warm enough. So, but soon I'll start that. So that's going to be interesting. I'll be curious to see, what happens.
Yeah,
So,
I have used a little bit of the Hive Alive pollen. We just don't really need to do a lot of pollen patties down here. There's
yeah,
pollen coming in, so they don't. I mean, if they need it, they eat it, but they don't
I
need it very much. And so you look into my colonies, and there's always pollen in them. And it just seems like if we go for a spell without pollen coming in, it's usually short lived. I mean, it might
yeah,
be a week or two here or there, but they are almost always bringing in some kind of pollen. It's just
mm,
crazy. You don't see anything blooming, but they'll be bringing in pollen from somewhere. I don't
yeah.
know where they find it, but it's
I
kind of
put it
nuts.
on. I put it on mainly, and it's due to I switched my gears, and it's because of um, and Ian says if you have pollen, save your money, but it's from a chat when Ian was on with Humberto, and they were just talking about pollen subs and all that, and part of why I put them on is with our crappy weather. Like I know they were out. We had such an early, like warm spell. I know they were out and they were collecting pollen. But one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that they always had a source. So by putting, the pieces, now I wasn't slapping on the whole entire pollen patty. I was putting on little pieces of it just to supplement a little bit, but I always wanted them to have access to it. So, and it's worked, yeah, maintain momentum. That's what I wanted to do. Now, this junk weather here that we have and it's cold, if they're starting to brood up, and they will, I mean, after the winter solstice, they typically, everybody knows your queen starts to lay more. But I always wanted them to have the ability to access a source.
Yeah.
So when we have this cold spell here and it's all weak, if that just totally shuts down the protein that's coming into the colony, well, there might be repercussions. So, but that's my thought process is I always want them to have some type of source available, and that's why I put it on. So,
Yeah.
and it does. I mean, it does help boost them as well. But you know,
Here's a
so-
Did you see
yeah.
Ian's? Did you see his picture on of him with the bee
Oh
beard?
yeah, yeah,
So I've got a little response to that. This is something I've been wanting to do for years, literally for I don't know, almost the whole time I've been keeping bees. I've wanted to do a bee beard, but when you see how spicy my bees are, you can understand why I'm a little bit hesitant to do that. And so I guess here's the question: what you guys think? I'll throw this out there for y'all. Do you think that if I use somebody else's nicer bees, that's kind of cheating, or do I need to use my own bees? Now I've got some bees that are nice enough, I think, to do it. Maybe I could use Greg's bees, for example, for
yeah.
this bee beard. But it's something I've wanted to do for a while, and I've just never been brave enough to do it.
How do
The
they?
bee beard.
So
I've seen videos of people doing it, but I've just
how do they
never.
do that?
They from what I understand, Ian, and you can kind of correct spicy bee beard. Yeah, I spicy until they start stinging my chin up. So, but I think they take a queen cage and they strap the queen to your neck, like right here somewhere,
Uh-huh.
and then they just kind of shake the bees on your in this area right here. They kind of just put them on there, and the bees just all go up around
And they'll
the.
just
Yeah. But I would definitely reach out to some folks that I know have done it before and make sure I'm doing it right before I get in that situation. But
that would
yeah,
almost be
I do want to do that. That's something I've always wanted to do. I think it'd be kind of fun and interesting. It's just been something, but I've just never. And I think it'd be easier to have someone helping me too. I don't know that I want to try to. I think I need to have someone to actually apply the bee. I don't know if they shake them or if they just kind of lay them on there. But those are all
yeah.
things I have to. Yeah, I have to be
Huh.
ready for. But if it's a nice, beautiful spring day and the bees are all happy and flying around and drawing in nectar and stuff, and I can find a nice colony like Greg's here in the backyard is a tremendous colony, I may just give it a try. But I'm going to have someone help me with it because I don't want to try to
There you go.
figure that out myself. And Ian's on here. Ian, I'll ask you the question if you can answer. Did you do that yourself, or did you have someone apply those bees to your chest right there to your chin?
That's That would almost be like that's something for a conference, you know.
Yeah,
You could win a
Lisa says,
ticket,
"Coat
do
your
a
face in honey."
drawing.
I don't want to coat my face in honey. I
You
think the idea is the queen pheromone. I don't know, maybe Swarm Commander or something. Put it on there. I'm not sure how you do it, but I'm gonna do this. Okay, so now this is a call.
huh,
I guess I'm kind of challenging myself to do this, so
interesting.
maybe that'll be coming in the future. I've thought about it for years, and I just have never done it. So that's something I'm gonna have to figure out a way, and maybe in the next little while I'll get that done. I need to fly Ian down here and let him help me with it. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Maybe I tell you what though, you know what? And this is something we're going to have to talk to Greg about. I wonder if there's ever an appearance of Bruce's bees in Ohio.
There just might be.
If we can each do a bee beard.
Okay, so here's another question: can you do a bee beard if you already have a real beard? Are they gonna get caught in your beard and stuff, or do you need to shave that joker off?
The length that mine is, it's not really
Be
that
fine.
long. So, I don't think it would be that much of an issue. If it was like Hillbilly Earl length,
Yeah.
or
Well, yeah,
he shaved his now, but if it was like
Oh, he
that,
has? I didn't know he shaved his beard. He's
he
shaved.
shaved. Yeah, he had surgery. So,
All
and
right.
he
Well,
had to
that's
shave
the
it.
challenge I think that I've issued to
Yeah.
myself via Ian and the rest of you guys on here. So I'll have to do that. But I guess the other question is, am I less of a man? Am I less of a beekeeper if I use somebody else's bees, or do I need to use my own? That's another
No, I
question.
mean, if I think if you do the bee beard at Greg's, since you have queens that came from there,
That
it's
makes
almost
sense.
like they're connected. They're
Okay,
sisters.
so we could actually, maybe I could buy a queen from him, and we could take the bees out of that colony, and then it would be technically it would be my queen, right?
Yes.
And then it would technically be my bees. I don't know, man. I've got y'all. I have so many things in my coming down the pike as far as what I'm trying to do with this
Yeah.
channel. I mean, I've got just so many ideas in my head. That is definitely one of them. But I hope, and what I'm trying to do, hopefully you'll see a lot of my content. It just kind of, I fall back to what's easy to do,
Hmm.
but I really want to up my game as far as some of the editing, and just continue to grow and get better with it,
Yeah.
and provide. I'm trying different style videos and some different things. Even my inspection videos are a little bit, getting a little different. I'm trying different lengths and different things. And so hopefully I continue to, we will hold you to account.
You see it Hive Life and you haven't. It'll be held.
Yeah.
You know what? So maybe Hive Life would be the ideal place to do it at, because you could get that, you could numb up with some of that Tennessee shine,
Yeah.
and then you won't feel
No,
20,000 legs.
I'm
walking
not,
all over your face.
I'm kind of weird. I think it'll feel kind of cool having them on there, as long as they're not stinging the crud out of me. Just
Yeah.
having them walking on there, I think will be kind of neat. But as far as like this,
I mean,
that's what's got me worried. If
it
I get
is.
if I get 100 stings right over my throat, I mean, that could be bad. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. I think, like Lee said, have an EpiPen ready. Because
Yeah.
I tell you, if they would start to tear into you,
Yeah.
if you start smelling banana,
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be getting them off in a
Yeah.
hurry, getting that bee brush, and then that'd just make them mad. So who knows?
put earplugs in your nose. Huh. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So-
think that is important to put stuff, just all the, like, I don't know about your ears and your nose, anything where they can go up in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. When I do it, I won't do anything like that without absolutely learning the process and trying to follow. I do a lot of things, by the skin of my teeth or whatever. I do a lot of things on the spur of the moment, but that's something I will not do spur of the moment. That's going to actually have a plan.
Yeah.
And it's going to be done a certain way, because I do want to do it right. So it does end up being a nice beard, like a good looking beard. And also I'm as safe as possible. So that I'm going to do a little research on that, and maybe soon, I don't know how soon, but soon can be defined in many different ways, but hopefully here in the future, I'll be able to do that and get some advice from you guys. I'll definitely contact you, Ian, about that, and kind of figure out the best way to do that. I've seen videos where people do it. I know kind of the principles behind it and how to do it.
Yeah.
I've just never actually done it. And so I've got to do a little more research before I risk that endeavor.
Yeah.
And like Ian said, you really have to have someone to help you. I think for one reason, to help you with the process, but number two, if things go wrong, you need someone to help you get out of this situation. You know what I mean? If you're in the middle of this thing and you start having issues, there's no way that I personally could take care of the problem. You got to have someone to help you with all that. So it's important to have someone to help with that. So anyway, I didn't know we were going to talk about bee beers for 5 or 10 minutes tonight.
I know.
But that's been kind of fun.
What's the most important piece of equipment that you have?
Me?
Yeah.
Most important piece of equipment. Gosh, man. I mean, probably the hive tool, if you want to just break it right down.
Yeah.
But you got to have that hive tool or you just can't work them.
Yeah.
Honestly. But the hive tool, I would say, is smokers critical. And then you move on up to the protective gear. Just working in the hives, what you utilize to work the hives, I would say would be the most important stuff. But as far as what's benefited me most, or kind of the bit, what I'm, if you talk about a more pricey type of piece of equipment that I purchased, that's made my life easier as a beekeeper, there are 3 or 4 things. Number one, this is actually, when Greg was talking, this is something I wanted to come back to after I knew he had to leave, but I didn't bring it up earlier. But, and you mentioned, I think briefly, Brian, or maybe Greg did, whenever you start to scale up, that includes equipment, not just boxes and numbers. It also includes like ability to do more things fast. And so, bigger trucks, you got to have the pallets, the things to move the equipment. You can need bigger extraction equipment and all that to become more efficient. And I watched a video. I think it was a video that Bob Benny did. It may have been an interview with Nathan from Duck River. And he talked about how he could handle, he had, I think, 2 extractors going, and he and his son would extract the honey, and he had 700 to 800 hives, and he could keep up, but that's about all he could do. And then he got to the point to where when he purchased the Cohen equipment that he has now, he could just immediately go up to 1,000 plus colonies, because there was no bottleneck with the extraction process. They could do more efficiently. So at every level, we started off with the 3-frame hand crank extractor. We extracted probably thousands of pounds of honey, hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of honey with that little thing. And then my first kind of big piece of equipment I purchased was the Maxent 20-frame extractor, which was just a game changer. Also, the Simple Harmony Farms uncappers that we use are very fast and efficient. I know some people don't care for those. So that's another thing that really helped. And probably one of my favorite things that we purchased was that darn bottling tank I have. It's only a 16-gallon Maxent bottling tank with the heated jacket. But that thing, it has the no drip valve on it, or it's like just like this, and it's just so fast. You just warm that honey up to about 100 degrees, 105, 110 degrees, and you can just fill bottles up as fast as you can. I mean, it's just so fast and so much more efficient. We used to take it and we put the heating blanket around the 5-gallon buckets. Then we dump them in the bucket that had the honey gate on it, and we'd have to do it over the sink because the honey gate doesn't close very well. So it leaks, it drips quite a bit. And it'd be 5 gallons at a time. 5 gallons into the other bucket, bottle up a 5-gallon bucket worth of honey. And then while we're doing that, we got another bucket on the warmer and just trying to go back and forth. But now we can get, 16 gallons, you can get 3 5-gallon buckets in there, and you can bottle up quite a bit of honey at a time that way. And we stay ahead of that. So that works out. That's one of my favorite things we've purchased as far as efficiency goes. Then of course the tote that we have to feed the bees with the pump that pumps it and agitates it, and we can just so quickly do that. Just in a couple trailers I bought, and it just goes from there. But really at every level, if I was to go up to Sideliner status, I'd have to get some bigger stuff. I'd have to build more. I have to have more space.
Yeah.
And so you've got to think about efficiency. You can do a lot with just a little bit, but man, when you upgrade that equipment, sometimes certain things you can upgrade that just speed up your efficiency so much. Another thing from a cost perspective, if you get to the point where you can order things in bulk, like by the pallet, man, the price goes way down. And it obviously, if you're like a hobby beekeeper, or you obviously don't need 1,200 frames, you can maybe find some people in your bee club or try to go in together and get an order together like that, because that cuts the cost, like dramatically cuts the cost. Am I going to do a giveaway when I hit 20,000 subs? I'm really close to that right now. Thanks to all of you. And I've thought a little bit about that, but this is my thought. My thought process on the YouTube channel has changed significantly. I am excited about the 20,000 subscriber count, but what I'm more excited about is seeing the views and the time watched grow. I know, as I've studied YouTube a lot, as Brian, as you know, I look at the analytics and I watch a lot of channels that kind of tell you what to look for in YouTube. And what I've discovered by some of the research I've done is, you do have channels that may have 1 million subscribers, but they only get like 1,500 views on a video, or they don't have a lot of the channel. I don't want to say the channel's dead, but it's not really a thriving channel. And so I've put a little bit less emphasis on the subscriber count, although I do appreciate every subscriber that comes on here. But I'd rather if you subscribe, I'd like for you to continue to try to watch the content or keep me on your radar. That is value. That means a lot to me. I'd rather kind of keep you on the channel, and hopefully I'm providing content that you want to continue to watch. And so I just haven't put as much emphasis on the subscriber count as what I used to. I don't really have plans to do a giveaway at 20,000. I just thought I'd kind of quietly let it go. I may do something, but I just really haven't give away a hive tool. We could probably do that, Spirit of Toad. I might do that. I don't know. Frankly, I've been so busy trying to put out content and think about what to do. I haven't really even thought about planning a big giveaway, because I'm worried about trying to get the next thing out. I'm trying to keep the bees healthy, and I'm trying to just have these incredible experiences. That experience, this past Saturday with Seth was just invaluable. I had the best time. I was super tired, but I learned so much, and man, it was just cool, man. These collaborative videos and things like that. And so got a lot. My brain is always just growing and thinking, Brian, this. Like I'll sometimes I'll text Brian or call Brian and say, hey man, how do you do this? Things I still don't know how to do. Like, how do I grab this link and move it there? How do I do this on YouTube? And I think we've kind of helped each other out a little bit on some things, on some ideas, and you can probably see some of that influence on our channels. But John's got an idea there. Do a bee beard for the 20,000.
There you go.
20,000 bees on a beard.
I tell you, the one thing that I'll say though is to do like a huge giveaway. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of discussing giveaways, but just the amount of time that goes into pulling that off, it's like ours that we did in December. I think we were 2 to 3 months just to
we worked
put
on
everything
that
together.
We worked on that for months.
Yep.
And I could get someone to donate a product, and I could do that. But I really I want folks to I want everyone to see my content as being valuable. And I think it's a great idea to do giveaways on the channel. Of course, we'll do some more
crab boil.
Yeah, that'd be fun. But I think it'd be really cool to do it. But I just, to answer the question, I don't have anything planned, and I'm probably going to hit it within the week's time, I hope. And so I really don't. If I hit 50, we'll plan something big. If I hit 50, my goals are kind of, I've just kind of got my goals set. I don't know if I'll ever reach what my goals are, but they're set pretty high when it comes to the YouTube thing. And it's not because I just want to be able to say that I've got that level. I want it to be valuable content that people appreciate and that helps other people, and that they enjoy, that it's worth your time to watch it. If it's not worth your time to watch it, if it's not something you want to watch, then I don't want you to watch it. I want it to be something that's valuable to you. And that's kind of a bold statement. I'm not begging anybody to watch my channel. I'm not going to do that. I rarely even ask for subscribers anymore. I just hope that I can get some of that through the merit of the content that I'm creating. And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's a little bit different. It's a little different than what some people think. And it's just how I am. I'm not just going to get on YouTube and just try and just take time and try and get eyeballs on my videos just to grow, or just to get, I want it to be content that's valuable, is what I'm trying to say, that you want to come back and watch again and again. So I hope that's what I'm doing. And I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to get better. I've just recently, last night, I uploaded a program to try and help with some things. If I can figure out how to use it, you may see a little difference in some of the videos. So I'm just always thinking and working on it. So
Yeah.
Anyway, but someone, and Brian, someone earlier, I can't remember who it was. I do have it started. Let me look up here. They asked a question about YouTube. Jeffrey Horton, I'm not sure, or Jeffrey
Haskins.
Haskins. How do I get that to show? Did it
There.
pop up? Okay.
There we go.
Do you have any advice about learning to start and edit a YouTube channel? And Jeffrey, I don't know if you're still on here. I hope you come back and watch it if you've clicked off. But the advice I would give you is this. Yeah, there is a what am I doing here? There is a YouTube channel called Think Media out there, and their motto is you just have to press record.
Yep.
And just grab your phone and just start recording stuff, man. Just go with it. And it's not going to look professional. Mine still doesn't look professional. Everybody's got their own unique style. But I would recommend, if you're doing regular lawn format, hold it in the landscape position like this. And if you're doing shorts, you do it like this. That's kind of the only thing to get started. And then just start watching, believe it or not, YouTube videos on how to start a YouTube channel, and that you can start learning ideas and start learning different camera angles, and just try some stuff, man. And they say until you've uploaded like 100 videos, you can't really expect to just explode and grow on YouTube. Now those people who are already doing really well on YouTube, who are super successful, have already grown, they could probably start a new channel in a different niche and be successful immediately because they know the tricks already. But you have to learn it individually. And I'm always watching and learning from other people who are successful. I watch a lot of these channels that talk about how to get better on YouTube, and they have differing views and ideas. And but I glean from that, and I try to get better. But I have also learned that, like, for example, David Burns was on here earlier. David Burns has his own style, and I can't be David Burns. I can't do it. I mean, I've tried to do some things a little bit like that, where I try to do those how-to videos and really, but that's not me. That's not my style. And I've tried to do things like other people, or tried to be like, but I can't. Whenever I do that, it doesn't work. I just have to be me, and hopefully that's good enough. And so I think you can see, when you watch YouTube videos from people, you can tell when they're trying to imitate somebody else and do what they do. And you can also tell when people are authentic, and it's just, everyone's trying to figure it out. So you got to give people some slack, but just hit record and just try it out and just figure it out. If you ever have any questions, feel more than welcome to reach out to me. I can give you some ideas, but I can't do it for you. So you just got to try and figure it out on your own, and don't get frustrated either, Brian. I guess you'll agree with this, right? If it doesn't grow immediately, if you have like 10 views, 15 views, 30 views, just keep plugging, just keep going after it. And eventually it'll start to gain some traction. And
so what Jeffrey, what Bruce said there, be yourself. Don't try and be someone else, just because if you're going to try and mirror what someone else does, if you try and mirror Bruce, well, Bruce is already on here. So be you. And that's what I think draws in people, is just the uniqueness of each individual person. You've got, like David, we've mentioned David, he has his style, and it's great. You look at Ian, who's on here, he has his style, and then it's great. If you try and mirror that, we already have that person. So just be you. But, as far as growth also, I had been putting videos on YouTube for probably over 3 years, and I had 16 subscribers, and they were family and friends. And literally one January, I had gone out, and I did nothing different. I had gone out, checked the colonies, because we had, some warm days in Ohio, filmed it, and I put it up. And literally within a day, like, I had like 500 views on this video. And I was like, I remember sitting there with my son, because we would kind of laugh if I'd get 20 views on a video, and I just checked it like a day later, and I was sitting there with my son, and I was like, Jared, that video has like 500 and whatever views. He was like, are you serious? I said, yeah. And it just, from that point, it's almost like something happened, and it's just, been the steady growth. So, but you just got to keep at it and find you. That's it. And you don't necessarily have to go crazy with editing, because there's those on here, like the California beekeeper Jose. Um, he, for a little while did not have the time to put in a lot of editing into the videos and really capitalized on the shorts. There's not much editing involved at all. So you'll just find your niche. And yeah, I tell people that, I mean, how many people walked up at Hive Life and how do you start a channel? Just
Yeah, get on
pick up
YouTube
the
and
phone and
type on YouTube how to start a YouTube channel.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
just roll with it. And like I say, don't get discouraged. And you got to decide upon what your goals are. If your goals are just
yeah,
to document what you're doing and just to have fun with it and just not really worry about growing a channel and turning into, really monetizing all that kind of stuff, that actually is much less stressful, I think, than folks that they're trying to really grow it and turn it into something a little more than that. But
yeah,
sometimes there'll be a little traction and you may find some growth and some
yeah,
success that you didn't expect. And sometimes you won't, but just keep plugging. I don't know why some people that seem to have just tremendous content, it never catches the algorithm, but if you keep plugging, eventually it will. And
yeah,
there are a lot of people on here. We've got Lisa on here and a lot of people on here. I think Ed was on here earlier, and so many of you guys, I've seen some of your videos, and they're getting better and better. And I appreciate that. But one person I want to kind of call out here, he was on here earlier, is a Grayson with Wildwoods
mhm,
Honeybee Farms. Now, Grayson is 13 years old or maybe 14 now.
mhm,
And you see in every video, he's trying something new as far as he's doing, obviously trying new things with his bees, but he's also trying new tricks with the YouTube, with the filming, with the editing, with the thumbnails, and he's just working on it. And, he's
yeah,
13 years old. So if he really sticks with it, he's going to be very accomplished at whatever he tries to do, whether it be beekeeping, YouTube, or whatever. He just has that ability and that desire to learn and move forward. And so,
yeah,
so
yeah,
don't ever judge yourself. And I'm guilty of this. I see people that are doing X number of views, X number of whatever subscribers, and I'm like, man, why am I not there? But that's a dangerous thing because you can get discouraged and
right,
frustrated. It's really, you're not in competition with anyone except for yourself. If that's even a case, it's really about just trying to improve the craft as you move along and try to get better. So,
yeah,
and that's the same thing with beekeeping. That's kind of why they go hand in hand so well, I think, because
yeah,
beekeeping is the exact same way. You're just trying to improve that craft. The reason I watch other people's videos, sometimes it's for entertainment, sometimes it's for support, sometimes it's just to learn a new technique
mhm.
and to try some different things. And so that's really why I watch YouTube. And so
He's asking here about info on editing and more for the technical side. So Jeff, Jeff or Jeffrey, I don't know whichever you prefer. Um, for my editing, I used to edit with DaVinci Resolve, and DaVinci is for me it was very challenging.
yeah,
I'm somewhat of a techie person. I'm a tech geek, so I teach a computer system to healthcare workers is what I do for my day job. So I'm always on computers. Um, I found DaVinci very challenging. I moved to a Mac and used iMovie, and now I use Final Cut Pro. And Final Cut Pro it's like a Lamborghini. You can do so much, but what I'll say too is if you want to get into it, audio is very key.
yes,
If your audio is subpar, you can have the most you can have this like huge display of fireworks and whatever, but if you can't hear anything, folks are going to tune out. So audio is very key, and I learned that. And I picked up at least for me, I picked up a set of those the wireless. They're not the Rode ones. It's another company that works pretty good for what I need. Um, but they're the wireless mics, and it really boosted the audio. And
hmm,
that is key. I could say starting out, number one thing is if your audio is bad, just
yeah,
kind of focus in on that.
yeah. I agree with that, and I became just obsessed with that a while back. I used to just film everything with my phone initially, didn't have any clue what I was doing, And I even got some little mics, kind of like what you're talking about. Probably not as nice as yours, Brian, but just some real cheap mics I found on Amazon when I really got serious about YouTube. And they were okay, but they just weren't what I wanted to be. And finally, I've really kind of done some research, and recently I found some really nice mics. This is one thing that I've also been thinking, just to let you guys know something that may be coming down the pike, if I can figure it out, how to do it is just to do a how I film my videos type of a thing. And I would of course show the equipment I use, the mics and the
Yeah.
camera and everything, and just kind of show you what I do, how I film my beekeeping videos. And I'll just gonna let y'all know I use my iPhone. I've started just using my iPhone. I had a camera, I still have the camera, but I had a camera I used for a while with some little mics I had, and the iPhone, actually the video quality is better than that camera was. And I know you got a real super fancy GoPro, Brian, but I just have my iPhone and it does a great job. I finally found some mics that I can use with that phone and just put like a receiver in the phone, and then they're wireless mics. And I think you'll see the interview that I did with Tom Nolan from Formic Pro, also the day with Brian Lee when I was doing splits, and then just this past weekend, you'll see with the video tomorrow night. The video I did with Seth Hill, we were wearing those mics. They're totally wireless. You put them on, you take up to 250 yards, I think, reception. So I could walk 100 yards away. You can still hear me talking.
Yeah.
And it just makes all the difference in the world. So Brian, that is a key thing, is to figure out the audio. Yeah. But Joseph here says, this is an important point too. The harder I work in editing a video, it seems that it gets less views. Those I go through together, gets more. I think you throw together. Okay. Those you throw together. Yeah. That seems to be true lots of times, Joseph. And you just never know which one's going to hit. I think the key is you have to be you, and you have to figure out how to capture what is most important. And so we didn't mean to turn this into a YouTube editing video tonight, but one thing that I found is, if you watch my videos, for example, if I'm going through a colony, many times I'll have like 45 to 50 minutes of content for a video that I edit, and I try to get them down to 15 minutes or less. Now, some recent ones, I've tried some different things. I haven't done that, but one thing you'll notice when I do my videos is I try to show you everything I'm doing. And I usually at the beginning, I'll show you myself kind of manipulating the frames and pulling them out. But after 2 or 3 of those, I usually kind of cut out that 5 to 10 seconds of getting the frame out. If you do that for 20, if it's 10 seconds for every frame for 15 frames, that's 150 seconds. That's over 2 minutes that you can edit out of it. Just the process of pulling that frame out and putting them back down. So things like that, where I hope it's not too choppy, but it's just something I've worked out. I still have a lot of work to do to get as good as I want to be at it, but those are things I'm trying to figure out. So, but yeah, Melanie says that'd be great. That's one. Those are 2 videos that have been on my mind. Number one is how to show kind of how I film my videos, and number 2, the bee beer. Those are 2 things that have been in the back of my mind for a while. But we do have more interviews coming up with some people, and
next week.
Next week we've got one here, but on my channel I've got more stuff coming up. Let's see, I think we've mentioned all the comments I wanted to mention. So we could, Healthy Honey, I will tell you the name of the mic is the DJI mic. It's the same company that makes drones.
Okay.
The mic there's 3 different ones. When I decided to do this, I decided I was going to pretty much use my iPhone to film video with. I asked Greg, I just filmed it just with the mic on the phone for a while, and I figured out a way to do it. If you keep the phone fairly close to your mouth, it sounds pretty good. The problem with the iPhone is that it captures everything. So in one of my bee yards, I've got a road through the woods. You can't see the hives from the road, but it's like 50 yards behind me. And it's a highway. It's a 4-lane highway. So there are big cars and trucks going by all the time. So that iPhone picks up every Jake break that goes by, every noise, it picks it up. And so the mic is almost too good. And you want to have some noise cancellation if possible when you're filming stuff, so you can hear what you're saying, so it can be clear. But Greg suggested the Comica mics. You can do it with the Comica mics, and they're good. They're like the little little squares. You'll see them on his. And Greg is an audio engineer, and so he definitely understands this. That's what he recommended. So I got online on YouTube, like I always do, and I researched, and I looked at the Comicas, and then I looked at the Rode RODE, the Rode mics, very similar. They're a little bit better quality, a little more expensive as well. But then I popped on a video of this DJI mic, and it's like the next level up. But man, they are just phenomenal, and they work. You can plug them in. Like if I could use them for this tonight, you could plug them in your computer. You can plug it into your phone or into a camera. They're just set up for pretty much anything. Android, iPhone, they've got all the little adapters for that. It's just a little receiver you plug in, and then you put them on wirelessly. Now they do cost a little, like $340. They're quite pricey, but if sound is important, which it is if you want to grow a YouTube channel, then that's what I'm using right now. There's different things that you can use. You can use all kinds of mics, and there's some like kind of like Ryan. There's different brands and everything, but that's the one I decided to settle on. It's a little bit higher end, but it doesn't break the bank, at least not in my case, and it was worth it to me. But I've only had them for like 3 months, so I just got them 3 or 4 months ago.
I use a brand, Jeff, called Synco, and they're about half that price. As far as the main thing that I saw when you're going to these different levels of those wireless mics for the audio is the range was one of them. When I looked at that, I'm thinking, well, Rode and like the DJI, you can walk out a couple 100 yards. And I'm thinking, for what I'm filming, am I ever going to be 200 yards away from my hives and I'm talking? I never will. So the Synco, I think they had said like their range was like 100 yards maybe. And it's perfectly clear because there was a day where Greg had one of my mics on and I was at the learning yard and he was clear up at his building. And I had walked down to his, to the hives and was just filming some of the entrances and stuff before the crowd of people got down there. I picked up and filmed his entire conversation that he was up in the building and he was talking about grocery shopping. And then he had said he had bought some snack that he didn't want Susie to know that he bought that snack. And he was telling his buddy, and I heard him laughing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to edit that clip out.
Yeah, it is
but
funny.
as far as
you gotta be careful, because if you're there with someone, if 2 people have mics on and you're trying to talk and someone's like behind you and they forget they have the mic on, they're like banging on stuff, they're using the hive tool, they're talking to themselves. It's kind of funny because you can pick up every little sound. Another thing I liked, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I'm right there. Where is the Yappy?
The Yappy cup. It's right here. The Yappy cup is about to be moving on, though. It's about to be boxed up and moved out of here. So, but I do have the Yappy cup right here with me. I've been holding on to it. It's been my friend now for a couple of weeks.
It's been a little while. Jeez.
Yeah, it's about to go bye-bye. So, anyway, we're up to our 2 hours, and man, it turned into a real interesting conversation here. And I appreciate all the questions and all the support, guys. Brian, do you have any final thoughts for us? Any words of wisdom before we part?
No, I just I know in the last like 2 weeks I haven't really had much. There hasn't been much going on. The weather's about to turn, so I've had a couple people like Thomas, Free Range Art Farm. There's been a couple people that have asked me if I could film a video for those individual hive stands that I build. I have all the lumber. I have everything to build, all of my hive stands, other than like yesterday we had 3 inches of snow on the ground, and I don't have a wood shop. I'm not like, Brad and others that have this wood shop where I can go in and work. I got to work outside. So, and I don't feel like building hive stands when there's a couple inches of snow, but I'll be getting all of that stuff done here very, very soon. And then just filming a video on expanding my apiary. So I'll go through all of the details of what I plan for the season. If you would have asked me a month ago what I was going to do, I had no clue. But now I've made the moves. I've gotten the equipment that I need. I've got the queens ordered that I need. So everything is in place. I just need to get, first off, I just need to get the stands built, and that's it. I have all the other equipment. So, but that'll be coming up here shortly, and I'll probably try and get some content just down at this conference. I wasn't planning on it, But with the people that are going to be there, I mean, I'm going to have the opportunity to sit and chat with Humberto. I want to chat with Paul a little bit more. So there's going to be people down there that I want to talk with. So a little bit coming up.
Yeah, speaking of that, Paul, the interview from last week, Brian, it's been doing real well. I understand, and for anyone who didn't see that last week, about the first 70 minutes of that video are just pure gold with Paul Kelly on here talking about queens and how to.
Yeah,
just man, it was just nothing but meat. It was great stuff, and so
was.
I'd encourage you to go back and watch that if you haven't had a chance to watch the stream team video from last week with Paul Kelly. That was on Brian's channel.
Yeah.
I think we'll go ahead and start to wrap it up here. Once again, I can't thank you all enough for the support for the stream team here. Brian, we may have some fun things coming up this year. We're going to try to figure out a way to get together and maybe do some things in the next few months in maybe some other parts of the country. One of my biggest goals and dreams is to be able to do more things like I did this past weekend with Seth, to get out and just go hang with some people. It's extremely difficult with my job and everything to do that, but man, that was just a valuable day for me. It was so much fun. It was hard work, very hard work, but man, I just enjoyed that. And just getting in somebody else's bee yard, seeing how they work bees, seeing what their goals are. It was just really cool. And so that's one thing I'd like to do more of. It's just difficult. So hope to have more collab videos coming up. Hope now I'm motivated now to figure out the bee beard thing maybe sometime this year. And then I'd like to do the video with kind of showing you how I do things. But there's a lot. With bees, there's always something to film. They're just incredible little critters, and I'm so grateful to be a part of the beekeeping community. And as Greg always says, the bees are the conduit to the people. So really it boils down to the people who are in this chat tonight and others who have become part of our community. The entire beekeeping community out there is just a great bunch of folks for the most part. And so just can't thank everybody enough. Exciting times ahead. Brian, do you want to say what next week's video is going to be, or do you want to just announce it on your channel at a later time?
The next live,
I guess the next, or is it?
The next live will be on Greg's channel.
Okay.
I was last week, you're this week, and then Greg's is next week. We have lined up. I think he actually just did a chat with David Burns. They were out in Nevada. And
a short chat. Yeah.
Whichever you want to say. I'm sure if I say it wrong, somebody will.
It's Nevada. It's Nevada, but I think they say it both ways.
Yeah, but we've got Dr. Cameron Jack, who is just like, I think, the go-to guy now. They say he's turned into like the oxalic acid expert. So, but we've got him lined up. Worked on that for a little bit, and just to get dates and things like that lined up. But yeah, next week, Dr. Jack will be on, and really looking forward just to digging in. And I mean, there's going to be loads of information next week.
Yeah.
So, guaranteed. So,
yeah, he's a very knowledgeable person. And I think, any of these guys that put their necks on the line and do real research and find out things kind of, they get some pushback sometimes, but I've learned that I can glean a lot from everybody. And I've, I heard his interview. I watched that with David Burns, and, it was really interesting what they talked about, and it was some really good information. So that'll be awesome. But
it's going to be a good one.
Man, I think that's about it. We appreciate everyone for being on here once again. Thanks for spending some time with us tonight. I think we'll close it out now. Just trying to get better every day. And I'd encourage everyone to do the same, whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it be with the bees, if you got a YouTube channel, with your family, with just everything you're doing in life, with your job, with everything that you're passionate about. Just try to get a little bit better every day. And we can all grow together in that respect. So once again, appreciate y'all for being here. Y'all take care, be safe, and we'll catch you on the next one.